Feeling the need for change is at the heart of your ability to make it happen. I'm Vivian Carrasco, and I'd like to welcome you to Turning Inward. I am your creative midwife, your teacher, and host of this podcast. Together, we're going to navigate the interior life by unearthing your personal truth, insight, and your inner knowing. In 2 words, this is your inner work. Why, hello there, lovelies. It's Vivian. I'm back. And it seems like I've been gone a long time, but I really haven't. In magic world, this is seamless and on time, but in reality world, this is actually after a several month sabbatical. It's kind of like the same thing that I teach. I call it the Texas two-step, where you move forward. In the Texas two-step, it's 1 or 2 steps, and then you take a step back. I naturally follow that process, and sometimes that makes me withdraw because I'm leveling up. And the level up this time was actually because I just told myself that I needed to be a better storyteller. And the mere fact of me telling my psyche that I was not a good enough storyteller made me withdraw. So I'm hitting the mic again, and I thought I'd start with a little freestyle. Let's get to know each other again. Because a lot has happened over the last several years. If you're new to the podcast, then if you have the time and attention, you can go all the way back, throwback, to those first few episodes where I was finding my way up until now. And I've gone through a couple of different formats. And although I do love interviewing folks and having wonderful conversations with folks, I do that now more one-on-one, because that's where I sense that the majority, I don't know what the right word is, but that's where the deepest connections and the most fulfillment and meaning come for me. And I have a sticker in my big monitor here that says, do what feels easy. And that's what feels easiest and funnest, and I do it as often as I can. This is for folks who don't already know me and what I do, and haven't heard directly from someone about the results that we can get. Because most of my, in quotes, business, or again, air quotes, clients come from either repeat, coming back for more fun and giggles and transformation, or from referrals. It is very much a word of mouth kind of thing. And although the podcast gets a much bigger audience, I really can't tie any direct business or engagements or relationships that are built through this podcast, but I trust in more ways that you can imagine. And I know without any seed, any grain of salt of doubt, that you're out there listening and that my words mean something to you. You wouldn't be here if you didn't want to hear from me. And so I feel it is both my obligation and my commitment and my promise to continue to show up. And I feel good about the transformation that's happened over the last several years. When Love Being Human as a sort of set of instructions was downloaded, it scared the shit out of me, just being honest. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I know that I had just moved through a really beautiful opening and had never really felt the sense of peace and just ease that I had at that moment that I received those words. And for me, it really was this message to now it's your turn to turn around and give someone else these instructions. You just can't keep this to yourself. And so I fumbled around and found a way to start to make friends, talk to people, and figure out how is it that I'm going to share. And my voice, this podcast, is the first thing that I did, and I want to continue to do it, and I love doing it. But not too soon after that download in October of 2012, I was hit by a car in April of 2013. And back then, and I've told this story 1,000 different ways, so it's interesting to me. And decades from now, I might listen to the way that the story evolves. But I really did retreat and say, no, thank you. Like, thanks, but no thanks. And in that retreat, after the car wreck, I realized that I didn't have that. I do have that choice, but it wasn't the best and highest good for everyone, including myself. But I'll still tell you that if I could put my head on the pillow with complete peace at night and spend my time, invest my time alone reading books and contemplating and doodling, I would do that. But every few months I try that, and I'm a complete unrest. Because I know in my knowing that, like Joseph Campbell says, you have to return and, just hand the tool off, give the tool. And so what today is let's just get to know each other a little bit better. I did have a beautiful conversation with someone, and they asked me a bunch of questions that were really interesting for me to consider. So my work is about growing in awareness. That growth in awareness, that noticing, naming, and nurturing that I talk to my peeps about, allows things to fall away without effort. Interestingly, that's what I do. That awareness builds your own connection to yourself, first and foremost. You have an intimacy with your own voice, your own insight, your own guidance, your own knowing. And then as you grow in confidence and courage, and as you develop those skills in your own intimacy, what do you want? Love. And what brings you alive? Then you actually grow in connection to those around you. And it happens in that order. That's why this podcast is called Turning Inward, because you have to turn away from the noise of the world and of society and of culture to tune in to yourself, your highest self. And that's who I serve. I serve folks who either have a hint, they have a hunch that nothing outside of them is really going to give them any lasting happiness or sustainable change. Nothing outside of them. That it has to come from within. And it results, the people that I work with, it results in a new way of being in the world. A way that you move through your day-to-day that is different, that is more present, that is more grounded, that is more confident, that is more peaceful. It's like you've sharpened the saw. So those are the people I serve. People who have very strong values in duty, loyalty, family, faith. Because even though it's easy to run away to the next thing, the next job, the next relationship, the next house, whatever it is that you think that you need before you can feel peace, when you get that thing and you don't feel peace, you start to realize, wherever I go, that's where I'm going to be. So this is what I need to work on. And that's who I serve. So I mentioned faith. And then one of the questions that was posed to me was, do I have to be religious to work with you or learn from you? And the answer to that was no, but you do have to have faith. I mean, you have to have faith. Religion is not a prerequisite, because the spiritual direction, the spiritual practices that we'll do don't have a religious basis. And I think I don't know what spirituality was in my book somewhere. Let me see if I can flip through it pretty fast. So I happen to be a Christian Catholic. So it seems to me, and I remember from somewhere, maybe catechism, that Jesus said, if we're doing the same work, then they're not working against me. So as long as you have a sense in yourself that kindness and compassion and love trump fear and hate, then we're good. If you sense that you can bulldoze your way through life and that that's going to work for you, my voice will probably be like chalk on a chalkboard, because it goes against who I am. It goes against my way of being. It goes against my life, my living. So no, you do not have to be religious, but grounded in your own values and turning towards love. That's my answer today. How can you help me? That was a question. How can you help me? So here's what I do for the most part. I help you co-create change. Slow and steady, so that it's sustainable and it is transformational. And primarily, we do that through maintaining a daily spiritual practice. And it begins very slow with just noticing, fine-tuning your awareness. Words like mindfulness come to mind. Building space, creating direction, giving you insight, support. So you will develop your own sadhana, which means your daily spiritual practice. It's your own personal, individual spiritual effort. That's the crux of how I can help you, by helping you develop your own spiritual practice. And this spiritual practice, this ritual, this routine, is what you'll use to move through your world with purpose and with meaning. The other thing that's coming up for me, and this is still in development, so I'll just be totally transparent about that, is the idea of mysticism. So how do we develop our spiritual consciousness? What is the nature of our spiritual consciousness? Because lots of things like, not what do I want, not to like my little I, but what is in the best interest? What is for the greater good? Because the women that I work with are cautious about creating chaos. They're cautious about hurting the people they love. And I love that. So that's why we move slow and steady. We don't sort of go around with a jackhammer breaking down things. And as a matter of fact, you don't break a bad habit, you actually build a new one. The other thing that's coming up for me is this idea of shamanism as a universal spiritual wisdom. It is inherent to all indigenous tribes. So what I say, or I've said before, and I flipped through this in my page, so I must be wanting to say it now, is that as a modern mystic, we develop our spiritual practice, and then we take pilgrimages to sacred places. And that could be in real life, like actually going somewhere outside of your house, or it can be sitting outside daily in nature, coming together in small groups. The interesting thing about the work that I do is that you don't have to be in physical proximity to me for us to be connected. I actually work with folks around the world. Sometimes the time zones can get tricky, but It's actually pretty easy with technology. If working with me one-on-one or in a small group is not your thing, but you are interested in just a taste and experience my energy, I do teach yoga regularly at a local studio. And come visit. It's hot yoga. So it goes for 60 minutes. It's 104 degrees, about 70% humidity. And it's a nice way to sort of set your soul on fire. I enjoy it very, 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 very much. Let's see what other questions she asked me. I don't see anything else. Oh, I made a note to myself to remind you that I will be opening another Magnify small group in October of 2017. So if that's something that you're interested in, and if it happens to be past October 2017, go ahead and drop me an email at Vivian@viviancarrasco.com, and we'll see where we are and what projects are ongoing in case Magnify isn't. But so far, Magnify has been magnificent. So I expect that experience to continue. It is a 90-day small group mentoring experience with myself and up to 5 other women. And we go through it live. If that's not interesting to you and you just kind of want to teach, want to be taught and go through lessons, then I have a community called Within University, because I anointed myself as a professor and created my own university. And there is digital learning there available to you that goes deeper into the topics that we talk about on the podcast. So if you're looking for spiritual vision, it can encompass goals like, more work-life balance and those things, but it really has to have kind of a way that you want to magnify your life. Open your heart. That's the kind of work that I do. I believe that begins with joy. And so a lot of what we do in the beginning together is we seed that joy. Like we find ways to nurture the joy. So if you were to look out into the night sky and you see stars, that's kind of the intention of the work. It's not that we ignore the darkness. It's that we focus our gaze on the bright stars. Because neuroscience is literally changing your brain through your experience. And so I choose to focus on what brings you to life, what fulfills you, what is grounded in your values. And it kind of works. I wrote this down because I thought this was interesting. The other thing that I noticed that I've done over the years consistently is that we bring the sacred to the secular world. And this is very practical. These are embodied experiences. It's not teaching or telling. So within university is teaching and telling, but the embodied experiences that we have in the small group are guiding you through your journey. Having you actually get in the water to learn to swim, not read about learning how to swim. So I serve as kind of a Sherpa through your own spiritual vision, developing your spiritual vision, and then awakening your own awareness. That is the end of my notes. I really want to thank you for listening, for being here, for sharing your time, your ear, and your love. I'm always open to answering questions. They're fascinating to me. So feel free to email Vivian at viviancarrasco.com, and I will either reply back to you individually or maybe create an episode on that topic. So I want to leave you with some words from Leonard Cohen and a song called Anthem, because I sense that there's so many of us, including myself, who want things to be a certain way before they can do something. And part of me freestyling this podcast without a frame, without sort of moving from one point to the other and just going with my own flow, is because one, my own flow is my own genius. It's how I make magic in the world. But I also recognize that just telling myself the story that I needed more structure kept me from even opening my mouth. It kept me from pushing record. It kept me from being here with you and serving you. And that's a disservice. And my hunch is that in some way in your life that's happening for you, you're withdrawing from where you actually shine, from where you're meant to be, and from what you're meant to become. And I wanted to leave you with these words from Leonard Cohen as inspiration and also as a set of instructions. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Thank you.